Okay. All right. So what I'm about to show you is a very simple but a very powerful way to take your existing web or blog content and actually make it work for you, right? Actually drive some relevant intent-based traffic to your website, because we all know that, that's the first part of the funnel, right? You've got to drive relevant traffic before you can convert it into, a marketing qualified lead, to a SQL, to an actual client revenue, etc. So the thing about the strategy is that it's deceptively simple, right? But it's extremely powerful when you do it right. The thing is that a lot of people don't do it right. They flounder. And I'm going to show you my process, or at least part of my process, for breaking this down and really making sure that you're spending your time and money where they're best deserved. So before I go on and get into all the nitty gritty and the about and break it all down, let me show you an example from a client of mine I did this for. So you can see how well this can work if you identify this right, if you do the breakdown correctly. So the client that I'm talking about is NugMD, right? So I'm going to go over to them. Here is the blog post that we worked on. Now, I started working with them around about June this year. And one of the first things that we did when we started working together is we did this process, right? I came in and I said, look, we need to find you some wins, because right now, the content that you've got, the content that you're putting up, it's just not working. We need to bring in some more relevant traffic. We need to, get the momentum moving. So what we did is we went through the website, looked at all the blogs and things like that and said, hey, what has potential? We identified this blog post, right? How to naturally pass a drug test. After smoking weed is what we called it, but basically it's about how to pass a drug test, right? Because it's, as you might imagine, with medical marijuana coming into play in some states and even recreational marijuana in some states, some employers obviously still aren't allowing you to do that, to work if you were under the influence recently at all. So people are wanting to know how to do it because they want to get their fix or relax or whatever it is, but they also need to work. So we had a look, and if I jump down to some of the metrics here, you can see organic traffic here, 34,506 a month, it says. So if I go back to about June, which I think is around about here, look, so the start of June, it's about 7,000, 6,000 something, right? 6,000 something hits per month on this piece of content, right? That's at least Ahrefs' prediction of this. Obviously, this isn't the Google Analytics. It wouldn't be fair for me to show you the back end of their website completely, but this is a good indicator for you. So just pay attention to maybe not the particular number, this particular number, but definitely the differences, right? So here we've got about 6,000. Now we're looking at 34,271, or as you see here, 34,506, right? So I came in the beginning of June, I did this analysis, we rewrote, rejigged the content, made some changes where we needed to, looked at some more links, etc. And now we're sitting at least by Ahrefs' prediction, 34,000. I'm going to show you the actual number that we got in the last month to just give you an idea of what that scale looks like. So I can show you here a screenshot from a little report I did up for them. So in the last month, we got 138,000 hits on this post, right? So it's a big jump. This post, I'm unashamed to say, actually gets more hits per month by far than even the homepage, right? We identified this was a really intensely searched for topic. It was something that had a lot of potential for us, and we rewrote the content, and this is the result that we got. Now, if you're among the skeptics, and I understand that you might be, I would have been, you might say, hey, there's a 94% bounce rate there. 94% of people are zipping off the site. Well, personally, I don't care, and neither do they, right? This is a top of funnel thing. We want people to be aware of us. People, for NugMD, they do a lot of medical marijuana card certification via telemedicine and renewals as well, right? So this is really top of funnel for us. We don't sell anything even closely related to something like this as far as like a direct thing. So a 94% bounce rate for us, obviously is something we can work on, but we don't mind. About 6 minutes on an average time on that page when people come. So we know that we've identified highly relevant traffic because we've got 6 minutes, the average time on page, even with this huge bounce rate. And we get 138,000 people introduced to this content, introduced to the brand every month. Totally worth the time we put into this, which would have been, I'd say, with writing and things, probably about maybe 3 hours, maybe less, right? So that's an idea of how this can work for you and what it can do for you. So without rambling on anymore, let's jump into the process. What exactly is the process? Well, it's a 5-step process. You're gonna have to, excuse me reading from notes here, but essentially you grab a tool like Ahrefs here, like I've got, and you plug your website into it. You want to look at that tool and you want to review the organic keywords that your website and your content is already ranking for. So that's step 2. Step 3 is you're reviewing the content that your competitors have based on that keyword that you chose. So you chose one keyword, say it was like this. So we can say here, organic keywords, naturally pass a drug test, how to pass a drug test, right? This is 10,000 searches a month in volume. Say we chose that. Well, basically what you're doing is you're looking at saying, okay, well, if I'm ranking there and my competitors are ranking there, what are they doing that I'm not doing? That's what you're doing. You're reviewing the on-page content that you and your competitors got. You're reviewing all these search engine results page metrics, all these metrics that Google thinks about in the back end using this Ahrefs tool. And you're looking at links. Of course, links are very important in SEO, but I'll come back to that. So the next step is once you've done the analysis, you're updating the content, right? You're improving your content to make it comparable or better than your competitors from both your customers aspect, perspective, but also from Google's perspective as well. And then the last step, sit back, you watch, you wait, and you let that gain momentum. It's not going to happen overnight, even if you do this. It will take maybe a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. You might have to just sit on it and just let Google figure it out. But you sit back and wait a little bit. But you've done the hard yards, you basically reap your rewards there. And I've found this works in all sorts of niches, across all sorts of clients, for all sorts of intent-based searches. They can be e-commerce based or B2B or B2C or, general blog topics, whatever. It's gonna work if you do it right. So before we start, and before I do move on to all this, the reason that it works, I want to jump into a few things very quickly. The reason that it works is that Google's a dumb machine, right? It's the smartest one we've got, but it's still stupid. It's equivalent to like a 5-year-old or something like that. You're going to say, hey, where's the cup? Where's the mug? Where's the glass or whatever? And it's going to bring you back everything it knows. It's going to tell you everything it knows about the mug or the glass or a car or something, right? That's all Google can do right now. It's not that intelligent on the scale of, human intelligence. Not even close. So what you got to understand and what we're trying to do here is we're not just looking at, hey, is our content good for our users? Although that's what Google tries to assess with all this stuff we look at. We're also trying to think of, hey, how might a machine determine what content is good for its users, right? And that's what we're doing in this. And the next thing that I want to really cover about SEO, because I know that SEO can be a dry topic. It can be something that a lot of people definitely shy away from, either because it's dry or complicated or technical, or it's just maybe for some of you it's boring, right? There's faster ways. Maybe you want to buy traffic from Facebook or Google AdWords or something instead, or, growth hack your way to success in some other way. Cool, I get it. The thing is, you don't need to know too much about it. You could get someone who's potentially got, let's say 2 years SEO experience to help you break down a lot of this. And in most cases, they're probably going to win, right? As long as your competitors aren't doing it as well, which at the moment, I'm going to tell you, most of them are. So you're in good hands, right? This is a good strategy for right now. So SEO really is broken down into links, content, and code, right? This strategy focuses mostly on links and content. Code would come into it, but I won't cover lots of that sort of code stuff because a lot of it generally applies site-wide. And the thing that is specific is very specific to certain types of content or certain, parts of pages or whatever. So I'm going to skip a lot of that today. But for most of you, I think if you haven't done any of this, thought about SEO, it's not going to matter anyway. Just doing this stuff, content and links, that's 2/3 of what you need to be worried about or concerned about. All right, so let's jump in and have a look at what are you going to need to do this before you get set up. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some kind of SEO tool like Ahrefs. That can be, my preference is Ahrefs. I've not been paid to say that. SEMrush, you can use those guys. Moz, There's plenty of these tools out there, right? There's another one, Nightwatch, I think is a new one on the market. You've got Ranks, RANKZ, right? You've got all these SEO tools you can use, but just pick one and stick to it. That's the main point that I want to make here, because your analysis is going to be based on the information that it can give you, and all of these tools measure things slightly differently. So make sure you pick one and stick to that so that you're consistent in the results in your analysis. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is you're going to need just an empty document. And I think that's pretty much about it, right? You're really on an assessment point. So everything else will open as we go because it's super situational. Okay, so first of all, let's open our doc, right? So I've got one prepared already. I'm going to pull that up. I believe it's this one. It's not. Here we go. What's going on here? Give me a moment. Is this the right one? Nope. All right, we might have to find this one for you. Oh, that was the right one. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so here's what I've got, right? This is how I like to break this down. And this is how I recommend that you break it down. Excuse me a moment. There we go. So here's what I recommend you do. You get an open doc and you plug this sort of stuff in. URL, target keywords, SERP analysis, on-page analysis, and actions. This is going to give you the main points to keep track of what you're doing. I definitely recommend this because you want to use this for a point of sharing with writers, potentially, if you've got an SEO or a marketing junior or something like that who's going to want to understand all this, and you're going to want to understand all this for past, for reference. In the future, if you want to re-optimize this content again, because, links, search engine results are always moving, competitors are always doing something, you're going to be able to refer back to what you did in the past, right? So you're going to look at URL, target keyword, SERP analysis. So if you're not familiar with that term, SERP is search engine result page. So basically the results page that you get from Google when you type anything in. Your on-page analysis, so that's going to be looking at exactly that, whatever shows up on the page. And then you've got your actions, right? So we want to open that doc and set that up. And then we want to go over here and we want to get into, say, let me close these two because we're not going to need them anymore. And you're going to want to get into, say, Ahrefs and click their site explorer up here, right? So sign up for them or the equivalent in whatever tool you use, right? The explorer that will look at your entire website and look at the organic keywords that you've got. So this tutorial, this little breakdown, I'm going to use indicative as my guinea pig, which is a great one because they've got some great content, some great potential content there too, which I think we're going to find a lot of use out of for this example. So basically plug it in, make sure you select domain here so that you can get the whole domain, everything that all the keywords that Google is seeing and ranking. So you want to get all of that. Now you'll load up a page like this, just like you saw before in my example. And basically you want to skip out everything and go to organic keywords. They've just introduced this a new organic keywords 2.0. I don't know if it's going to be there depending on when you watch this, but right now just go for the general organic keywords. Don't worry about the 2.0 one. All right. So let's see this pull up here. And what this is going to do is exactly what I described before. It's going to say, okay, based on what Ahrefs sees as Google is ranking you for this many keywords and you're ranking at in this position. That's where your position is within Google search. So you can see a good example here. Data byte is a keyword. The volume per month that it gets, this is the amount of searches per month within the United States that this is getting, 150 searches per month. And it's currently sitting in position 1, right? So that's pretty much all you need to know about this. Now there's a few other things in here, but we'll get to them if we get to them. So make sure that you'll select the right country at the top here for where you want to analyze and rank for. Obviously, for most people, I think it's going to be the USA, but you can see all these other ones. You don't need to worry about any of those. We're just focused on USA. And when you do one of these analysis, you really want to make sure that you're focused on that. If you think you need to rank in these other countries and do an analysis, I think it's time you hire an SEO or someone to help you out. This is definitely not an intern or a one-person job. International SEO is tricky. So anyway, so you're looking at this keyword, right? So the next thing you want to do is you want to go position, and you want to filter your positions from, I like to say position 5 to say 20, right? Because what we're going to look for is we're going to look for these keywords that are relevant to us. They have a decent amount of search volume per month, and they're in the middle of page 1 or just off page 1, right? So position 20 is the bottom of page 2. Why are we looking for those? The reason is that Google has recognized that you're relevant already to that keyword. And generally in this scenario, what it means is just that Google said, hey, you're relevant enough to reward you with a position close to the front. We just don't think you're the best content yet, right? That's why you're at 5th or 7th or 10th or whatever. So that's why we're looking specifically for these type of keywords. So I've had a bit of a look at this already, and it can be a bit more tricky in picking some of these. And I'm going to pick one out that I've already found for us. Funnel analysis, right? So we're going to look at this. So what you're basically doing when you're doing this is you're going and say, okay, massively parallel processing. That's 300 per month. We're at position 5. If you see this green or red, that means we've come up 8 positions recently, right? So yay for indicative. That's not bad. So you can see that there's lots of things here. So it's really up to you. It's going to be a judgment-based thing once you find you tick those couple of boxes. But I found that this funnel analysis stuff I think is going to be good, because this seems like it's someone who's not only just going to want a definition, but maybe really want to know more about it, which gives us an advantage over something like, maybe what is geolocation or metric data, where to me personally, that just feels a little bit broader. So what we're going to do when we find a keyword like this that's relevant, 400 searches per month, you can see, and we've got a blog post here that we're ranking for, or a landing page with some description here that we're ranking for. What I do is I grab this URL, copy link address, and then I jump over to my Word doc and I paste that in there. Right, so I can keep track of that. And then the other thing I do is I grab the target keyword so I don't lose track of that. I just copy and paste that too. Or you can type it in, it's up to you. Cool, so funnel analysis. So what I like to do is say target keyword funnel analysis. And for future reference, I like to record down also where it was ranking and how many searches it got. So I might say ranking 15th for funnel analysis. So I'm saying this URL is ranking 15th for funnel analysis. And then I might put in brackets 400 to tell me that's how many searches it gets a month. So I'll keep track of this. Anyway, so SERP analysis is our first point. So once you've done that, you've plugged it in, you're going to go, okay, drop down this button over here, SERP, right? So you're going to drop down and see basically an aggregate of how this search engine results page looks in Google, right? So this is pretty much what most people will see in a general sense in the US if they were to plug this in. Let's move my head out the way here. Cool. So you can see what is funnel analysis. Chart.io is first, Wikipedia is second, then we've got Mixpanel, Hotjar, supported Google, Data365, CXL, Taboola, and Freshworks. So that's the top 9, and then 10 is the people also ask box, and then indicative down here at 15, right? So potential here to move up. Although, to be honest, it's a bit of a crowded market here. Like, it is a pretty impressive SERP. Some of the businesses in here do a really good job and are quite well known, but not impossible. So the one thing I like to recommend when you do this and drop down SERP is double check that in your Google as well. So open an incognito window, plug this in and have a look. Now I haven't opened incognito here, but you can see that I have plugged in funnel analysis, and I'm having a look here at sort of what is in that, in this search result as well. So you can see a couple of ads there. We can see this is a featured snippet, and we've got, a definition of it. And then we've got these couple of images, and this will be important later. And then we've got a people also ask box. So that's position 1 and 2 here, which may be a bit different for me as I'm doing this from Brazil right now. So don't take this particular example as gospel, right? Generally, you'll see they're mirrored very well. And then you'll see Wikipedia is first, supported Google is second, Taboola, Hotjar. So pretty much most people here are the same. I mean, Even the #1 result is chart.io. If we jump back over to here, oh, they are the featured snippet here, chart.io, right? So actually that's pretty much spot on, with the exception for the people also ask box, right? So we can see that they're similar. We've been able to have a look and see that there's some images here. Great, so that's good to know, right? So the first thing we're going to want to do when we analyze this sort of stuff, this sort of SERP, outside of just looking at Google, is we're going to want to start to think about how we can break this down systematically, right? Now, give me 1 second here. I'll help you do that. So first of all, we know that the keyword is funnel analysis. So we want to look at intent. What's the intent behind this? Google's an intent-based engine, or at least that's what they tell us. So we want to say, okay, well, what intent does Google reward within this search result, right? Funnel analysis. What is funnel analysis? A Wikipedia page on funnel analysis, which will more than likely be, you know, a generalized overview. Funnel analysis, an introduction by Mixpanel. What is funnel analysis again? Again, Google support doc, which is likely exactly the same. Then we've got another what is, fixing conversion in funnel analysis. So that's a bit of a deviation from sort of the very generalized what if. This from DeBuhler is a little bit of a diversion as well. And then again, another what is. And then what have we got? We've got a what is as well, or at least that's what indicative has. So we realize here that the intent seems to very much be a generalized overview, which would make sense and fall into line with the fact that, you know, the keyword is very general and broad, funnel analysis, right? There's likely a lot of other keywords that these pages rank for as well and get traffic from outside of just this funnel analysis keyword. So a generalized overview is probably what we want to supply Google with also, if we're going to be matching their intent and making sure that they reward us for that and put us, you know, back up here with #1 with chart.io maybe. So we know the intent now is funnel analysis. So we might jump, what I like to do is I jump in and take these running notes, and that's what these are all for, right? Running notes is just SERP analysis. Okay, so intent is a general overview. So that's saying to me the intent for this SERP is a general overview of funnel analysis, right? Which I might just shorten to FA for now because I feel like I'm going to say that too much and it's already a tongue twister. So now that we've done that, we're going to say, okay, what's the next thing that we might want to look at? There's many things, but one of the things that I like to look at really here is recency, right? So we can do that by opening up all of our blogs and stuff and taking a quick look at how recently they were published. Now, in something like this, I don't expect that to play a big role because funnel analysis doesn't really change very much. But maybe you were writing about something, you know, cutting edge to do with data analytics or something, or whatever you do, and that might be something that's very worthwhile looking at recency about. So this is written by Caitlin. We don't have a date here, I believe, which puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage here for figuring that out. What else we can do is we'll look at our competitors. And one of the things you can do if you don't have a published date, which I'm sure many of you who spend a significant time on the internet will realize doesn't happen most of the time, is you can look at comments, right? If anyone's got blog comments open, you can see when was the first comment made. Again, nothing here to help us. And as I said, I don't believe this will play a huge part anyway. So these are all the competitors that I've opened all of these ahead of time down the page here. Nothing here for us either. Right. So we're going to leave that and say, okay, recency doesn't look like it's a factor purely because we can't see that and I don't expect it to take one, but you make your own call. Not a big factor, you know, recency is always somewhat of a factor, I'd like to say. So next thing we're going to look at after our intent of the SERP here in total and the recency of when these are posted is we're going to start to look at, you know, keyword overlaps. Does Google have an overlapping keywords for this particular thing, this particular keyword or not? And what I mean by that is if this was funnel analysis, but then Google was also showing a lot of pages here that say that they're about funnel analytics, I might say, okay, that looks like there's a little bit of an overlap, which to me would indicate that potentially Google's not 100% sure how to define this scenario right now. But well, what we're seeing here, that looks like that's not the case. So we say no significant keyword overlap, right? And we jump on to the next thing. So the next thing I might look at is links referring domains. Very important in this part of the scenario. So I'm going to say, okay, out of all the competitors here, backlinks are very important for SEO, as I said before. What are the backlinks that they've got, and what are the number of domains that they've got those links from? So maybe the lingo is not completely translating to you, but a new domain is just a new website, right? If website A and website B both link to me, I've got two links, a link from each one, and that's from two domains or two separate websites. So that's two links from two domains. Whereas here we say, Chart.io here has 9 domains that are linking, but it's got 10 backlinks. So one of those 9 domains has 2 backlinks and the rest are 1 each, right? Makes sense. So the reason I say that is because you have a diminishing marginal return from extra links from a new website, right? So you can get 3 links from a website, that's great. But if you get 10, thinking that, 10 links from 10 websites will put you way above this number, you're going to have a diminishing marginal return, and Google's going to see that and discount that. So what we're looking for here is more or less how many referring domains is a better result. So, okay, I can see that the minimum that it looks like to enter this SERP referring domains, then the smallest number here is 9. 9 is the number 6 and 9 is number 1. So, okay, if I look at ours, what we've got here at indicative, 0 referring domains linking to this, 0 backlinks. So no links at all. So I'll go over to my spreadsheet here or my Word doc, and I'll say min links from RDs, so referring domains that is, needed is 9. So now I know when I go time to the action set, how many links do I need to start looking at? If I'm at 0, then okay, 9, but I could be at 5, and all right, well, maybe I need 9. I need only 4 more or 5 more to make sure I'm a little bit over that dead minimum, right? So I go back here. Now that I've had a look at that, the next thing I want to do is I want to really look at the keyword match between what the keyword is and what all of these blue links will say in Google, the same as over here, right? Because all of those links here are our page titles, essentially. So we want to say, okay, what is a funnel analysis? All of these include funnel analysis, right? Pretty much every one of these includes that. So I know that that's important. I know that I need to have the keyword in this, and generally having what is funnel analysis is competitive and successful for us. I can see what is a funnel analysis here, and the number 1 result has the same thing. So cool. I know that I match, my page title matches what Google expects. And because this page title is one of the main sort of keyword ranking factors for pages, right? It's a big one anyway. It's not the main one, but it's an important one. The next thing I want to look at is the URL. Does the URL include that keyword as well? Because that's also a factor for Google. So you can see that pretty much everybody has funnel analysis somewhere in there, with the exception of maybe Google. But otherwise, everyone else has it, and so do we. Cool, we match there. So maybe I don't need to take a note on that. So what else might I be looking at? The other thing I might be looking at, if I had links here, is I would be looking at what's my anchor text look like for my links. So let's take a quick look at Chart.io and have a look. So basically, all of this is the outside influence, right? Most of this, anyway, is the outside influence. How does Google rank these keywords based on all the top level stuff that we can see relatively quickly, based on links and URLs and headings and stuff? We're going to get into the real nitty gritty of the content in a minute, but without even clicking and having to open all these pages, pretty much, we can see here if we've got some big mismatches in what we're producing and what we're naming things versus what Google rewards the naming conventions to be. So once this opens up, we'll find that we'll get a bit of a breakdown on what kind of links they've got. So cool. So you can see these are all the links that they've got, and these are the pages that they come from. So these are the pages that they've got a link from. And then this is the anchor and the backlink. So the anchor being the highlighted text that is sending people there. So funnel analysis, funnel analysis, funnel analysis. The initial setup of the conversion of funnel is very much crucial. So you can see here that they've got a lot of their links have the keyword in it. Now, it's not advisable that they all have the exact keyword in it if you're going to start building links or looking at links or buying links, whatever is your, preference. But you definitely want to make sure that it's in many of them, right? It has to be related. That's Google considers that to be important. So what you're saying, what we're looking at here is our title matches the keyword, our page title matches the keyword, our URL matches the keyword. The links that come to our website, or at least to Chart.io or our competitors, match the keyword, right? People are linking to their funnel analysis page by mentioning funnel analysis or things related to funnel analysis. Super important. Building this very big relevant cluster of content that Google can understand before it even reads our page. So now that we've had a look at that, we can say, okay, maybe we jump over to this here and we say competitors anchor text. Anchor text has strong keyword correlation. Now, I may look for that too, because if it doesn't and they're ranking anyway, me having a strong keyword correlation or improving my own will probably put me ahead of them. And that's why we look at it. Okay, so now we've done all that. The next step is to look at our on-page stuff. So this is the stuff that's a little less technical and a little bit more, observational, right? So if I'm going to start looking at the on-page stuff, the things that I really mainly want to look at is the keyword matching. So let's say keyword match. I want to look at the interlinking. So interlinking is different to backlinking. Interlinking, or probably a better way to put it, is internal linking from my site. I want to look at that. The next thing I want to look at is, or related to that is, related content, right? And I'll come back to all this in a minute and I'll explain to you why all this is important. And then we want to look at structure, media, and comprehensiveness, right? So those are probably the main big buckets that we're going to look at for the on-page content. So how do we do that? Well, we might go to ours first so we know what our benchmark is, right? Where we're at. Make sure you have a read of your content or have a skim of it or have someone who wrote it or whatever, have a, just refresh themselves with it, because you want to be able to tell the differences. So we can see that for funnel analysis, we're defining it basically. It's a pretty general little info here. It can be used too. So we're stating some of its uses, which is cool. No problem with that. And that's about it. It's a short bit of content here that is covering off most of, a very, very quick what it is. Definition page, right? Makes a ton of sense. Now let's go and have a look at what Chart.io has got and how Google sees them. So if I can find them here, Chart.io. So they're number one. What is funnel analysis, right? Here's a very quick definition. 2 sentences. 2 sentences. Nothing fancy. Then they go into a what is, right? So a little bit more deeper, an example of what you might do, how a funnel analysis might be conducted or why it might be conducted, etc. So numbers, a table here, excellent. They've got an image here as well. Then they go into how to use a funnel. So we go through all of that. Very detailed explanation here. And then a conclusion, right? So not super long content either, but definitely a little bit more comprehensive than ours, right? Makes sense. So number 2, the second result was Wikipedia. Let's have a look at Wikipedia. They do a definition here. They talk about the term, where it comes from. They talk about the real world application, which is essentially them looking at an example. And they talk about, why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. Cool, makes a ton of sense. And then they link to some, more or less related concepts. Cool, next one. Mixpanel, they were involved as well. Go back up to the top there, an introduction. So the same very much thing, they don't do a definition straight out of the gate, but they do it here. What is a funnel analysis? A bit more comprehensive than ours. Or let's say it's about the same size. So the content that Indicative is got right now is essentially the same as this, right? And that could be a very good reason why you're ranking where you are. It requires more comprehensiveness right now. So we see how it will help fixing the drop-off. So how to fix a drop-off in the funnel, right? Makes tons of sense. Conclusion, look at that. Next, Hotjar, more or less the same sort of thing. They've got a table of contents here. General aside, beautiful. Definitely have a table of contents where you can, if that's something you can code into your site. It just helps users, but it also helps you conceptually when you're writing and structuring content. And it helps Google to basically place weight on things, right? Because all these table of contents are generally H1s or 2s or 3s, which in a second we'll look at structure and why that's important. And that helps you to structure this out correctly, helps your writers to do better, etc. So I recommend that highly for anyone's blog content, especially. So okay, so we had a bit of a look at all those. So what did we find out? Well, we found out that if we look at comprehensiveness, here, let's make a note under that. Competitors are more comprehensive and include things we do not like. And then we can add in some of those things. Examples of an FA. So let's say how to do an FA. What else did we have over here? Let's say, case study. What else did we have here? What is, we had how to use one. How to use an FA, right? Cool. So we see that, okay, comprehensive wise, hey, maybe we've got some work here to do. Now, what's the next thing we're going to look at? Well, if we jump back over here, we sort of skip keyword match. So let's take a look at that, right? We know our keywords funnel analysis. So we know that on our page, if we put that in, we should see that here in the H1, right? So all of the first heading on your page should always be a H1, carries heavy weight for Google. You've probably already done this, but just in case you haven't, go and update it. So what is a funnel analysis? The next thing, funnel analysis defined. We mentioned the keyword here in a couple of times. That's great. There's no minimum number. There's no maximum number. Basically, we want to talk about, we want to mention the keyword at least in our main heading, and we want to mention it in our content, right? We don't want to jam it in. You're going to get people, spammy SEOs, all that sort of stuff. You're going to want to jam it in. Look, it's been shown to work in the past. It's not something that is going to work long-term. You're better off to try and be natural, but just, shoehorn it in very delicately if you're going to need to shoehorn it in. I think for most of you, it's not going to be a problem. You need to have the keyword in your. So if we go back to the front here, the top here, the keyword funnel analysis, you need to have it in your page title, which is an SEO backend bit that you generally will set up if you're in Squarespace or something like that. You'll see that in the SEO section. You want to have it in your URL as well, right? So that's cool. Pretty much everyone's done that. You want to have it in the first title on the page, which should match that page title anyway that Google sees, the SEO title. So you want to have it in this H1 as well. So that's the three main pages you want to have it. And the fourth one is you definitely want to have it in the first paragraph somewhere or somewhere close to the first paragraph where it makes sense to do so. You want to mention in those places at least, and then throughout the content wherever it's natural to do so. Right, so jumping back to our matchup, So we can see that we've matched that on the page where we need to. Let's take a look at our competitors as well. So you can see that they've done the same thing, right? So great, we're all doing it. One other thing you want to do is when you add in images like this, you're going to want to make sure that you set alternative text or alt text. Your blog, whoever puts your blogs together or your dev or someone is going to be able to help you do that. And you want to make sure that's descriptive, right? So here's Chart.io where they've missed this. They've labeled it figure 1, right? Now, Google's picked this up. If you remember the Google search result, Chart.io's images are in this featured snippet, right? So they're getting double real estate here. They're getting this and they're getting the images as well. Pretty much all of these images, I think, are Chart.io. At least that one is, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you add in this alternative text into your images, right? So you can see image source, alt equals figure 1. Not so great, not so great at all. So what we're going to want to do is make sure that we're matching our keywords there as well. So now we've looked at the keyword match. We've seen the competitors' content versus our content. Cool. We know that our content, so let's say we have good keyword match. We're matching it in all the places we want to match, right? And that is the page title, H1, first paragraph. What we aren't doing, we don't have images and don't mention it in alt text, right? So we might put something like that because we don't have a descriptive funnel image where we can show, hey, this is about funnel analysis. Okay, great. So the next thing we're going to look at is, let me jump over to here again, internal linking, right? So the other thing that Google really looks for is related content to your site. Internal linking is very important for that. So if you've got funnel analysis as one thing, you might have another blog post on, you know, funnel metrics, right? And you might link those two together. Makes a lot of sense. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to say, hey, where on my website is linking to this post? Because I want to create clusters of content that Google can understand. So the same way that we looked in the external, hey, what kind of external content that's relevant to funnel analysis is linked to my post? We want to look at the internal. Hey, what type of internal relevant content do we have linking to this post? So you've got your sort of top and bottom there, external come down, internal come in. You want to make that, hey, everything that is around this that Google's going to see, all is very closely linked to that topic. So you're going to have a look at that. And we might say, we can do that from using a tool like Ahrefs if you really want to. I won't go into it here, but basically you can say, you can grab your URL and plug it into Site Explorer as well and click, or you can just go to something like this here. Let me move my head again. And you can look at, let's jump over to these guys. Look at Chart.io. So Chart.io, we're looking at the exact page, right? So look at your exact page in a tool like Ahrefs, and you can say, what are my internal backlinks? So this internal backlinks report is going to tell you, hey, on your own website, these are the pages that you've got linking to whatever page you put up here. So you're saying, okay, that's a cluster of relevant content. Next thing we want to cover off, structure. We sort of already looked at that, but we want to look at our heading structure. It's very important. So if we're going to cover off these, say, these pieces of content here, that are, Control Z, bold that, right? These pieces of content here, we want to make sure that we're going to add them as H2s or 3s or 4s, right? So it's the same as when you order a list. You're going to say structure, say we want to do this structure here. And we're going to say, okay, we would want to add this in like example 1. And that might be a H3, and this would be a H2, right? Because the structure carries weight for SEO. And then you're going to go and you look at your the media on the page, which we already had a quick look at. So, you know, we don't have images or video. You might put in here, competitors don't use video. So you might say here, opportunity, right? You can see that anyone ranking the top here hasn't created a video about funnel analysis. So maybe you create a 3 or 4 minute video explaining the concept, add it to that page along with images as you expand it all out. So now let's say we've done all this analysis. I'm not going to go into that anymore. We go into our actions, and our actions are really simple. You just go back through all of this on-page analysis stuff, the SERP analysis stuff, and where you find negative things that you mentioned, like minimum links needed from referring domains is 9, and we have 0. We go down here and we say, okay, backlink campaign needed for, needed 9 to 12 links needed, right? Because we know 9's our minimum and we maybe want to go a little bit over the minimum. Cool, no problem. Next one, you know, add heading structure. Create and add a video on funnel analysis. So all we've done, right, is we've analyzed from top to bottom, inside and out, what does Google reward from our competitors? What do we have or lack compared to our competitors? And now we're just saying, hey, what do we need to create? But it's a very structured, top-down process that you can use now and repeat it and get people to look at this and say, okay, well, now that this is done, I can now hand this to, you know, my marketing guy, or my marketing guy can do this. And maybe he could put a section in here, add sections on, and then you can go this, and you can say, how to do an FA. How, you know, FA examples, etc. So you can hand this to your writer, internal writer, and say, hey, we need these sections. Go and do a bit of research, add it with what we already know, write it and add that content to the page and update the page. So basically, it's as simple as that. You do that, and then once you've updated it, got a couple of backlinks, You sit back and wait and let Google reward it. Now, typically I would say do the content first, publish it, then go on your backlink campaign, right? You want Google to find that content, see that you've changed that content as quickly as possible. So do that first and then go on your backlink campaign, or do your backlink campaign, get that started, however you do that, while you redo this content and then republish it. And that's pretty much as simple as that. I don't think there's anything more. Here's a little bit of a breakdown on what that looks like, right, in the aggregate. So you can see here, I'll zoom back into that. You can see here that we've got SERP analysis. In SERP analysis, we were looking at these things: our keyword, the intent of our keyword, and any overlaps. We were looking at the recency of the blog versus our competitors. That might be something that you want to look at. Difficulty, we skipped over, and it's definitely something that you don't always need to look at. But basically, sometimes we look at, how difficult it's going to be for us to get there. If we're ranked 57th and everyone on the top page is like really big companies for that keyword, maybe it's not a low-hanging fruit. We don't go after it. Not yet anyway, until we've gained some more momentum with Google. Referring domains. So we looked at the referring domains and their backlinks. So we looked at, how many backlinks for each referring domain, what were the sources, what was the content and the anchors that were linked to that. We had a quick look at that. Our on-page analysis, we looked at our keyword match. Did our keyword on the page match the keyword off the page into the stuff that Google sees? Does it match in the places that are important to us? So that was the H1, alt text, etc. And then we looked at our internal linking. What pages do we internally have that link to this page that are important to what that should be linking to a page? Very closely related topics, or the same topic even, just more in depth. We didn't look at load times. It's something that's more code-based and structural, and definitely can be a consideration, but it's definitely more likely to be site-wide. So I'd probably leave that one out. And then content, we looked at, from a structure point of view, from a comprehensiveness point of view, do competitors cover something that we don't? What are the headings that they have versus ours? Have we used headings in a way that maximize the structure? So we looked at the structure. Media, is a content succinct? Do we link to external resources? That's important too. If there's something you can reference as external, it's not a direct competitor, try and link out to that. And do we link from into this content to other internal bits of content, right? So if you have other internal content linking to that page because you want it to rank, you would expect that page to be linking to other internal content that makes sense as well. It doesn't have to be the same pages, but still has to be similarly related, right? And then we write out our actions, and we did our actions. So you can see I did this again earlier with a bit more actions, pretty much the same as above you're going to see. The only extra thing actually I did add in here is that the expand the content, right? When I had a look at this in my original sort of practice test for this, sort of a go over, 167 words, I think, are on the page, indicatives page right now, versus competitors, which have roughly about 600, most of them, to 1,300. I think Hotjar had 1,300. So you want to say, hey, well, our content's very thin here. It's very small. We obviously, even if we did add these sections, we would need to make sure we covered them more or less comprehensively, because that seems to be relatively important to Google. And that's all we did. We just backwards engineered what Google wants. Nothing more complicated than that. Okay, and I think that's it. That's all I've got for you. I hope that was super helpful for you. It's very simple to go through and do this and pull this down and really take a look at, all you're doing is you're ticking boxes to help train machines, right? That's all you're doing. But what the trick in it and the art in it is doing it in a way that still gives you room for satisfying your customer, satisfying the conversion metrics that you're going to need to come off these pages, whether that's pushing people to other blogs or signing up to an email list or downloading something, right? So that's the tricky bit, is balancing all that. But from an SEO point of view, you can go through now and you've got some dot points now to be able to say, hey, that's how I figure out what Google wants. That's enough for me. Good luck with it all. If you need help, you can reach me on the Slack, or reach out to whoever you think is going to be a good fit for you. But yeah, wish you all the best.